Okay, now we come to our special message out of the Gospel of Mark, which we are studying verse by verse. Looking at this passage today, in which Jesus proclaims that he has not come to call the righteous, but sinners. And so we want to focus upon it and learn from it and grow from it and become even greater Christians because of it. Back when I was in seminary and going to one of the courses we were required to go to, which was pastoral Christian psychological counseling. That was a major course we had to take 2 semesters of. And it was graduate level psychological studies, but it was with a Christian dynamic and influence. And back in those days, there was kind of a famous little saying that was going on, and it was really told to us over and over in this particular course. And I've remembered it ever since, and I'm sure most of you have heard it 1 or 2 times in your life. And the expression is, denial is not a river in Egypt. Yeah, it was all about learning about how human beings deny their reality. It is our common curse that for some reason it is very difficult for us to accept our reality. Now, we have no trouble accepting the reality of other people and what they have to face and what they have to do and how they are. But when it comes to us, well, we oftentimes end up living in what we might call la-la land, imagining our life to be a certain way when in fact it is really not that way at all. It's very difficult for us to realize that it's not all the other people in the world who have problems. It is us who has a problem. This is one of the great discoveries of life, and we hope that all of you here this morning have discovered it. It is us who has the problem. Not our neighbor, not our enemy, not other people who are crazy and weird in this world. The problem is us. Like in that famous comic strip from a long time ago, Pogo, when he goes out in the swamp and sees all the environmental damage that has been done to his little swamp, and he goes back and he tells his little porcupine friend, today we have met the enemy, and the enemy is us. That is the truth. We are the enemy. Enemy of ourselves, enemy of our neighbor, enemy of everyone else in the world. Because our reality doesn't fit what their reality is. And we, of course, must try to live by what we see as our own reality. And we are very, very stubborn to realize that there's something really wrong with us that really, really needs to be changed on a daily basis. We're very, very stubborn. Now, you know, I want to use an example here about myself from the physical arena, because I think a lot of men have this problem. I know I have it as well. It's very difficult for us to admit that we need to go to a doctor. You know? We have these troubles, but we just think to ourselves, well, I'll just tough it out. I'll just get well by myself. And, you know, after all, I can do that, I'm sure. And we don't want to go to a doctor because we think that somehow or another, whatever it is we have, we can get over it by ourselves. Well, when we first moved here, close to 15 years ago, first year I was here, I developed some problems that I thought was a stomach problem. I was wise beyond my years. My stomach would be upset, and I'd get this pain going up here to my arm like this, you know. And I figured it was just gas, you know. Needed some more Rolaids, you know. And I existed that way for about 6 months, struggling with it. And then one day we decided to go on a trip, Rebecca and I and some friends, and we went out to the Isla de Plata, which is the island of silver that's off the coast of Puerto Lopez. And it's known as the poor man's Galapagos because you can see the blue-footed boobies there. That's the little animals that are blue-footed. Now, this island has no facilities on it. no hospital on it, no water on it, no nothing on it, except sun. And there we were, and I was having these pains again and the pains again. But we were going to hike around the entire island, and so we did that. But I was feeling really kind of bad and rough, but I just kept on going, thinking, oh, it's just gas and I'll be all right. Thank God when we got back to Cuenca, I finally decided to go see the doctor. But I decided to go to a gastroenterologist because I figured it was a stomach problem. And he looked at me and investigated things with me and began to look at the symptoms that I had. And he had a treadmill there, and he got me up on that treadmill, and within 5 seconds he said, "Stop! You must go to a cardiologist now." And he got on the phone, made a call to a cardiologist, got me there, and the story went on that the vein going into my heart, which they call the widow maker, was 97% clogged. After I'd spent 6 hours hiking around an island with no hospital on it. The Lord must have wanted me to go on, I guess. So I did. But stubborn, stubborn, stubborn. Very hard for us to think about that we really need to go to a doctor. Now, I know some people are like really way over on the other side. If their little finger hurts, they go to the doctor. If their head hurts a little bit, they go to the doctor. And they just run up those Medicare bills all day long. But most of us do have a problem admitting that there's something really wrong with us. We don't want to believe it. We don't want to think there's really something that could be there that needs to be taken care of. And I'm only sharing this story with you because I want you to think about the spiritual arena. It's not about the physical, because eventually something's going to get all of us one way or another. But the spiritual is the important arena. That's the one in which we should not be stubborn anymore. Because we all have symptoms of being sinners. We all have symptoms of being very, very sick. We all have these symptoms of living for ourselves, thinking of what's best for me, thinking of what's best for my situation, thinking of how we should live our life and do what we can do to protect ourselves, to promote ourselves, to glorify ourselves, and so on and so on. The symptoms are all over the place, and just taking another Rolaids or a Tums is not going to do it. We are going to remain to be sick like that. And that's why the world is so filled with evil and darkness, because people refuse to go to the doctor because of their spiritual sickness. They don't even take it seriously. They say, it's no big deal. I just live for myself like everybody else. It's no big deal. Well, that's why the world is full of the evil and the darkness and the horribleness that it is full of. Because we were not created and we were not designed to live for ourselves. That's what we have been taught by the world, is what we are supposed to do. And everybody says, what's wrong with that? I'm just taking care of my business. I'm just doing what I think I need to do. What's wrong with that is that the world needs your help. The world needs your hope. The world needs everything you can give to those who are suffering in a worse way than you yourself. That's the way God designed it. We are designed to be those who help those who are hurting and sick in this world. That's how we were created, and that's how we were designed, and that's the well-being that we need to have. And anything that does not get close to that sense of well-being is a sickness, and we call that sickness sin. And we are what we call sinners, because we are living for ourselves. So, is it no wonder then that Jesus says, I didn't come to call those people who think they're so good. I came to call the people who know they are not so good and who live for themselves on a daily basis, because I can do something for them. I can help them in some way. So the first point that I have for you today then is this. We need to kind of quit being so stubborn about the illness we have. We need to go and get something done for that. Because the more we continue to live the life of self, the worse our world is, the worse is the world of other people that we know, and the worse is the society and communities in which we live. It is spreading just like maybe COVID or some other disease, and we need to do something to get cured of it. That's what we got to do. And now some of us understand that, and some of us have made moves toward curing it, and that's great. But my message today is for you and everyone else. You can't stop. You can't say, oh, I went to church 10 years ago and I got saved and I'm fine. No, you're not. You're still sick as you always have been. Yeah. We got to do this every day. You know, there's a big problem in our human world called alcoholism. And I used to work for many years with an organization, Alcoholics Anonymous, and I was a counselor at the place called The Shoulder in Austin, Texas. And we worked with alcoholics all day long. But after a while, someone developed a new organization, which I thought was really great, and I participated in it. I don't know whatever happened to it, but they named this organization Sinners Anonymous. I said to myself, if ever there was an organization we need, that's it. And they did exactly the same thing they did in Alcoholics Anonymous. Everyone would stand up at the beginning of the meeting, my name is so-and-so, and I am a sinner. Okay? And that was a great, great way to get into the whole idea that we've got to realize, if you don't realize you're an alcoholic, you're never going to get over it. If you don't realize that you're a sinner, you're never going to get over it. It's the same basic principle. And so what we must understand is we've got to do something about this desire to live for ourselves and to think only about that. We've got to do something about that. So what are we going to do? Well, the scriptures, of course, indicate to us that we need to find the best doctor we can find to heal our sicknesses. How do you find the best doctor you can find? I thought about that myself. And I said, how did I find the cardiologist I ended up using? How did I find the gastroenterologist that I needed a little bit later? And how did I find the ophthalmologist that just did the surgery on my eye? How did I find these people? It was by the recommendation of others. That's how I found it. I have found that's the best way to find a good doctor, is to find other people who've gone to this doctor and who recommend this doctor and say, this doctor will take care of you and will do a fine thing for you. And I had good experiences with all three doctors that I went to. But the point of that little illustration is to say, what do we in this world hear when we ask the heavens? Who can I call on to heal me? Where can I find the best faith healer in the whole universe? Where can I find a spiritualist who can take care of my sin? Where can I find someone? And 2 billion Christians cry out, Jesus Christ, you can go to Him. He's the best doctor there ever was when it comes to healing us of this selfish, self-centered, self-glorifying, self-prospering life. There is no better doctor than Dr. Christ. And so that's the one with whom we need to make an appointment. That's the one we need to go to. That's the one we need to open up our life to and say, come into my life, Lord. I'm sitting here at my tax collector booth, hitting people over the head to get the money from this person and that person. Come over here to my booth and tell me something good. Well, this is what I believe, and that is that if you really want to do something about the disease, if you really want to do something to overcome the sin that you have, you've got to invite this Christ to come over to your tax collector table. You've got to invite Him into your heart and eat with Him and talk to Him. And when the Christ comes into your life, He says to you 2 things that will heal you. And He says it in our gospel reading today to this Levi person. He says to him, these 2 things are what's going to heal your sinfulness. He says to him, follow me and have fellowship with me. 2 things. Follow me and have fellowship with me. That's all it takes to heal you of your sinfulness. Because if you follow me, that means you're going to live like me. And did I live a selfish life, Jesus said? Did I live a life just for myself and try to build up my pension so that I'll have a nice pension when I retire? Did I do that? No. I lived for other people. Spent my whole day, whole night, every time I had a chance, trying to help people find a better, more meaningful, more solid, more real life. That's what I did. I helped everyone in this world do that. That's what I did. So follow me. Do the same thing. Forget about yourself. Forget about your troubles. Forget about everything you own or you wish you owned. Forget about all of that stuff. Just forget about it and live like me. You know, just live like me. Follow me. Do what I do. Say what I say. And then also have fellowship with me. Jesus said to Levi, we're going to have dinner at your house tonight, along with all the other tax collectors and sinners. And we're all going to sit there and eat together because I have something to help every one of you. I have something that will free you from the misery of living this self-centered, selfish life that you're currently living. I have something to give you, and that is to commune with me. Have a conversation. Like that great little gospel song we used to sing, have a little talk with Jesus. That's what you've got to do. You've got to have a little talk with Jesus about your selfishness. You've got to have a little talk with Jesus about how you're always thinking, what's in it for me? You're always thinking, what can I do to make a benefit for me from this thing? Or you're thinking of, how can I protect myself? How can I keep myself from miseries and difficulties in this world? Have a little talk with Jesus and find out that what real life is about is forgetting about all those things and going ahead and doing whatever the loving thing is, no matter how risky it might be. Go ahead and give people the peace they need even though you don't think they deserve it. Go ahead and share people the joy that you have even though they might laugh in your face. Don't let anything stop you from being the person that you are meant to be. The Christian being, the new being, the one who lives for life, which I mean who serves life, whatever form it might take. You serve life. You bring hope, and you bring help, and you bring peace, and you bring joy, and you bring love to the rest of life, because you know who else does that? God does that on a daily basis. That's what He's doing all day long. That's what Jesus is doing all day long. And when we all get to heaven, let me tell you, there's a lot of work. We're not going to be just sitting up there playing a harp and eating bonbons. No, there's going to be a lot of work to do. And we are all going to become spirit beings, ready to help the big spirit being do whatever is necessary to bring love, hope, and peace to people on this earth in whatever form we might take at that time. So, anyway, this is where we need to go. Dr. Christ. We need to take Him into our life and follow Him and have fellowship with Him. And that's how we're made well. Well, the final thought that I would have here is a little story about, it's not the final thought, it's the next to the final thought. A little story about something that happened in my life that really taught me the power of following and the power of fellowship. We can talk all day long about the spiritual reality of following with Christ and having fellowship with Christ, and that's good, but I'd like to put it in human terms. I'd like to put it in human terms about an event, an experience that I had in life when I was first becoming a pastor of a church. And in seminary, one of the things we had to do was we had to do a year internship. We had to go to a church someplace, and we had to spend a year being kind of like an associate pastor, someone to sit there and help the senior pastor, or the only pastor actually, and to follow him, and to talk to him, and to learn by example, to learn by conversation. And my first mentor in the faith was a man named Billy Triggs. I never will forget his name. And he had Irish heritage in him. And let me tell you, he had this red face, and he was so Irish, and he was just so much alive and ready to preach the gospel of Christ. He was a latecomer to the ministry. He had been an insurance salesman until he was 60 years old, and then he retired and went to seminary and became a pastor. And he was a great man, and I learned so much. But what I learned from him was by following him to the rest home, and watching him pray with these people who had no mind left. They didn't know who they were. They had no idea who anybody was. But he would pray with them. And then when he finished, they would smile. And they probably knew nothing of what he said. But I watched that. And then I'd watch him go down to the Star of Hope, where we helped the hopeless people that had no food or no clothes or anything. And we'd spend an afternoon there joyfully giving out clothes and joyfully giving out food to the people who came there. And to see them be so thankful to us that we were doing that, and to give us the joy of giving them. To see that, I went with him and saw those kinds of things. And then he let me sit in on the pastoral counseling sessions, where a husband and a wife were at each other's throats. And he let me see how, by being a peace-filled person, and by sharing the idea that the problem is selfishness, always selfishness, always, always, always selfishness. And he would help people open up to that, understand that, and many times move beyond it. And so, anyway, by living the faith with another person who was more into the faith than I was at that time, was a way in which I grew and became more of a person of the faith that I became. But the point of that story is, if a human pastor can mentor one person like that and change our life, think what Christ can do. Oh, my goodness. If you walk with Christ, as we sang earlier today, just a closer walk with Him. If you made that the goal of your life, I can tell you slowly, bit by bit, day by day, you will get free of that monster self in you, and you will become someone who lives for Christ. And you'll be able to say like Paul did, it is no longer I who live in me, but Christ who lives in me. And you will be one of the healed ones. You will become one of the saints. And if the world ever needed anything today, it needs those who have been healed and those who are saints, who now stand up among their fellow human beings and say, we got to quit this selfish living. We got to quit living for ourselves and thinking that that's what it's all about. We just got to quit it. Otherwise, we're going to destroy ourselves, and we're going to destroy this world, and it's really going to be bad. If you think what happened in the days of the old prophets, when the wrath of God came down upon the world, if you think that was bad, just wait until you see what happens to the world if we continue to live this selfish, self-centered life that we do not need to live. So, that's the final thought that I would have for you today. You need to let Christ be your mentor, not just your doctor, you know. He needs to be your mentor. And I'm saying that simply because a mentor is a lifetime thing. A doctor is a one-time thing. You go to the doctor, you have a heart problem, you put in a stent, and you say, thank you, doctor, that was great. And you never see him again, probably, for a long time anyway. But when you walk with Christ, you must walk with Christ every day in every way as you slowly but surely get free of that selfish, self-centered life that you've been living. It's very important to do it all the time, every time, and in every way. So, let's finish up then. Hear the scripture again. Jesus said, it is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. So, I have not come to call the righteous, but the sinners. So that scripture leaves us with these three questions, which I've already covered here today, but you can think upon them in the week ahead. Number one, if someone asks you, are you sick? What you going to say? No, I'm fine. I'm okay. Or are you going to say, yeah, I am sick. I'm a sinner. That's what I am. I live for myself just like you do. And that's why I live the way I live. Yeah, I'm sick. Well, what are you going to do about it? That's the second question. What are you going to do about it? What doctor are you going to call? I'm going to call Dr. Christ. That's who I'm going to call. That's what I want you to say. I'm going to call Dr. Christ, and when he comes into my life, I'm going to listen to him. And he's going to tell me to follow him and to have fellowship with him. And that's what I'm going to do. Every day of my life, I'm going to follow him, and I'm going to have fellowship with him. And this is what I'm going to do, one day at a time, every day at a time, until at last I fully understand that I was blind, but now I see. Amen.